started this, I don't know whether you've seen the Matrix movie, when Neo first gets plugged in to learn Kung Fu and kind of comes out of the dojo of learning Kung Fu and goes, hey, I know Kung Fu. That's basically what I wanted, was to fall asleep, wake up and go, I know Chief Operating Officer Kung Fu. And I felt like I really got that with Curtis's coaching, because we're very personalized. We tailor design luxury vacations for people. But also, Curtis was able to bring some ideas together of different ways that we could be doing business to increase profitability. And the reason that we contracted Curtis, basically, at the end goal is, of course, to be more profitable. Have a good time and have fun while doing it, but at the end of the day, to be more profitable. And Curtis was able to rely on a lot of his experience that he'd had beforehand, working as a consultant and with a lot of the other companies that he's worked for, to see how we could use some of those ways to generate increased profitability that we'd not thought about before, because of course we're inside the box, he's outside the box, so he could give us insight into some of these other different kind of methodologies of doing stuff, or just other ways of being more profitable, or just increasing profitability in the current way that we're doing things. And as I said, we just had our biggest quarter, and I have to thank Curtis for that, because if we hadn't got the projects done before this big quarter, we would have not have had a successful quarter like we had. So I have to thank Curtis very much for that. In a coach, I was really looking for someone that was personable, that I was able to work with. I think that was really important to me, that we kind of had a relationship. There was a bit of a bond there as well, somebody that kind of understood me, where I'd come from, kind of the UK before as well. That was particularly important to me, because we'd be discussing kind of very delicate themes at some point as well. And also someone that had the experience before. It was a new role that I was taking as the Chief Operating Officer, coming from the VP of Sales. And I understood that some of the sales stuff was going to be part of it, but I knew that the Chief Operating Officer's role would be a lot more encompassing, and also my responsibilities would be a lot more with regards to the number of people that I was managing. And again, also someone that had done the role before, that could give me real-life feedback, and real-life examples as well, of not just the textbook says this, but in this organization, we were able to take this and do this, and this is the results that we'd had and that we've been able to see. The reason being was that we could try 50 different ways to do something to find the one solution for the way it to be done, or we could speak to someone that had done it, tried the 50 solutions before, and then for us to actually find the solution from there. What I was looking for was someone that was going to be a coach and also kind of a trainer for me, and that wasn't afraid to ask me the difficult questions when it was necessary, and that was really kind of going to be like a spotter for me. Like, for instance, if I go to the gym and I'm lifting weights, someone that was able to spot me, that was able to motivate me, encourage me, show me the work that I'd got done, because all too often we kind of breeze past the work that we've been doing and just straight into all the tasks that we kind of the necessary that need to get done. So I was looking for someone that could really identify the achievements that we've been able to achieve during the coaching period, and always reflect on those as well. And again, a great communicator. Well, some of the major results that I got over the training period and coaching period, because it was training and coaching with Curtis. The first thing that we set about doing was really defining my job description, because we didn't really have a well-defined job description. And today, having done the role now for close to a year, yes, it's a very ambiguous role. One day you're in one department, working on strategic plans, and the next department you're answering calls from clients, just so you can get an understanding of how the process is. So that was really the first start, the beginning of what we did, was defining my role, but then also the success measures as well. But those success measures, making sure that we had buy-in from the exec team as well, and making sure that they weren't too that those actual success measures weren't ambiguous. They weren't kind of subjective, but were very objective. Of develop a talent pipeline within the departments of 2 people, meaning that we had a manager and we had a lead in the department, but there was also another lead in the department as well, so that if for any particular reason somebody got promoted within the business, that there was always somebody ready, to take that position. So that was one. And it was really making sure that I had exec buy-in on that. Curtis really pushed me on making sure that I'd had the meetings with the exec, and also making sure that my goals were clear. So that I could test anything that came to me from the idea of a project or a plan, because there's always going to be a lot of what I like to call kind of butterflies floating around, and you want to run after these butterflies, you know what I mean? But you really have to make sure that you're focusing on the goals of what you're trying to achieve for that year. So he was really questioning when I would state some of the things that I was working on. What was it? Why are you doing that? If you know what I mean, how are you going to know whether it's a success? Again, if you look at any athlete out there, is they always have a coach. They always have someone busting their balls. They always have someone telling them that it's not enough, if you know what I mean. But they also have someone high-fiving them when they do well, but also helping them when they need it as well. And that's really what I got from Curtis on that front. Also, one of the other things that was big as well that Curtis kind of introduced, because before I actually did the coaching with Curtis, we actually contracted Curtis as a coach for the business that was going to help us define really kind of a 12 to 24 month plan for the business. Because again, from the exec board, there's 5 of us on the exec board. This has really been one of our major kind of jobs, and we've learned to date reading books, watching videos, if you know what I mean, speaking to people. But we realized that in order to make sure that we could make that next big leap in the business and going from kind of a mom and pop business to kind of a mid-sized business, and also to be able to give us options as well, that we needed to look for outside advice. So we looked to a variety of different consultants, but we found that Curtis's background and his experience as well was what was able to really bring value to us kind of within the business. And again, just his very personable nature. One of the other huge things that I got from Curtis was the introduction of the Scrum, kind of the agile methodology with my managers, which was breaking stuff down from kind of month-long projects into week-long sprints. So really defining the goal of the project and breaking that down kind of into milestones and task lists and tasks, and then making sure that I'm meeting kind of on a daily basis, basically having kind of scrums and getting together with the team, everyone involved in the project. What did you get done? What are you going to get done? Do you have any roadblocks? You know what I mean? And figuring out is how the team can work together to get rid of those roadblocks. So that was really valuable. I've installed that with all my managers, and it's pretty miraculous when we sit down. I sit there back with my managers sometimes, and we sit down and we go over everything that we've got done in the month. And when we actually sit down, we go, wow, we got a lot of stuff done. Week to week, very small stuff, but once you start adding it all up, it's pretty. I would say it's pretty amazing what we've achieved this year. It's allowed us to have our biggest quarter that we've ever had in the company's history. This past quarter, our sales basically are through the roof, and I really see from here on out is because we have the ability for us to have this kind of Scrum methodology allows us to get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time, but also see the effects of that it has on the business numerically as well, but also just you can see it within the business of just how happy these guys are to Scrum, and they see the value in doing it. It's not, I remember when we first started, and I'm sure this is, again, I make the sports analogy, is that nobody likes to train. I mean, everyone likes to play the games, but nobody likes to train. And really our training is the scrumming. And to begin with, you don't really like it, but once you get into the routine, you can see the benefit of it. I mean, that's where we saw the value. But then also is kind of the I suppose, what I was not expecting was from my managers to be able to take that and install it in their teams as well and run that type of methodology throughout their departments. And it's amazing then, because when I work with somebody that's not one of the managers on a project, they already have that Scrum mindset, and they understand what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. So that was hugely beneficial to me. I've seen value from Curtis's coaching in really making sure that my managers are not running their departments and we're not running the business based on assumptions, that we have data-driven, that we're making data-driven decisions. We've analyzed the data. We have a clear goal of what we're trying to achieve. We have the data to back that up, so that then the managers can come to me with that data and that we can make a decision together based on the data that we have, rather than, and that's one of the things that I can say is beforehand is we were running the business on a lot of assumptions. And I remember first opening my mouth and Curtis going to me of, Richard, that's an assumption. And then me going, you know what, Curtis, you're right, that is an assumption. I need to go away and work on that and make sure that I have the data in order to make a decision, but also is that whenever I open my mouth, make sure that I have the data to back that up. And he did it with me. I was able to do that with my managers. So now my managers basically don't open their mouth unless they have the data to back it up. And then from there is we make decisions that are based on data. So that was very, very helpful for me because even though we were somewhat data-driven before, we were running the business on a lot of assumptions. And Curtis was able to allow us to identify what those assumptions were and make sure we had the data to back up those assumptions. And there were a lot of things within the business that we found out where we'd be assuming that the majority of our business is families, where actually it is 55% of our business is couples. So again, we've been able to change our marketing strategy there and also the way in which we sell to clients, now knowing that the majority of our business is couples. Also, one of the things that we got from Curtis was really identifying where we wanted to take the business and the pivot for the future. What was it kind of our secret sauce within our business that made us different and gave us our competitive advantage, and potentially of which in the future that maybe somebody might want, if you know what I mean, that's interesting to them, that we could partner with in the future. Or really is what it was he gave us options to get to a point where we had options. And I think that that's something that I've taken from him is, for instance, one of the projects that we have is to reduce our net cost to us on our transfers. And somebody asked me, okay, what are you going to do when you get there? And I said, you know what? Once I get there, then I can decide what I'm going to do with it because I have different options available for me. But the thing is, today, I don't have those options. But I know that once I accomplish the project and accomplish the goal of the project to reduce the nets, I'm going to have options. And I think that's really what it is for us within the business is Curtis was able to allow us to have options at the end of our 12-month plan and the end of our 24-month plan. Yeah, I mean, I've already recommended Curtis and I will continue to recommend Curtis. He's allowed me in my life to basically feel a lot more relaxed. I have a lot more kind of, I wouldn't say free time, but kind of space to think, to learn. Whereas beforehand, what I was doing was just kind of turning the crank. One of the huge helps that Curtis gave to me was really, it was kind of coaching, but it was kind of, I was talking to a friend that had a lot of experience. And Curtis had spent a lot of time in the UK before. I'm from the UK myself. I work in a predominantly American culture. So he kind of was able to understand the two sides, I say of the sword, but it wasn't really the sword, kind of the two sides of the leaf there. And really, because he understood me, where I came from, understood some of my lingo, and was really able to help me kind of put that into practice within the culture that we have within the business. Of course, I have a huge impact on that culture in the business, but 60% of the business is from the United States. He's from the United States, but he spent about 15 years in the UK. So it was really helpful there, due to his personal nature and really understanding where I came from, that on a personal level, we were able to communicate as well. And it was more like I was talking to a friend that was kind of helping me out, but also the one that was busting my balls and asking me difficult questions. I knew I was paying for the coaching, so I had to get something from it. So kind of toward the end of the engagement, and that's what I knew is, I knew COO Kung Fu. You know what I mean? I was basically Neo kind of waking up and going, I know Kung Fu. And I'll forever be thankful for him for that. And I still shoot him an email every so often when I have a difficult project or a difficult decision to make and just get his input. So thanks, Curtis.